Hey everybody, I'm James Katecki, and as you can see, I'm wearing a Bluetooth earpiece right now. That's because I'm about to talk over the phone with Democratic presidential candidates and the former senator from my home state of North Carolina, John Edwards. Senator John Edwards, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, James.
And the first question, which is probably the most obvious one, is where are you right now?
I'm in Chicago. I just spoke a few minutes ago to a national lawyers meeting, and I'm leaving Chicago in a few minutes to go to New Orleans, where I'm beginning a 3-day poverty tour to shine a light on the poverty that still exists in this country.
And what is the nature of the poverty tour? How are you, in a sense, shining that light on poverty? What are you doing?
Well, on Sunday night, tonight, Elizabeth and I will be doing a walk through the 9th Ward of New Orleans, talking to residents there, talking about the problems they're faced with. Tomorrow morning, Monday morning, Good Morning America will broadcast a town hall meeting with me from New Orleans, talking about some of these same issues. And then we'll leave New Orleans and go to Mississippi. In fact, we're going to the place where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Started the Poor People's March decades ago. And we'll go to lots of other places, to Tennessee and Arkansas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky. We're going to be traveling through that whole part of the country. And I think we actually end at Prestonsburg, Kentucky, which is where Bobby Kennedy ended his Appalachian tour to expose poverty years ago.
Take the conversation about poverty one step further, actually. If you were president, what is the link for you between domestic poverty, which you've made a big priority in this campaign, and international poverty? Because one could argue that while domestic poverty certainly is a significant problem, international poverty is much more extreme. Some estimates say we have 1 billion people living on less than $1 a day. So what do you make the connection? What do you prioritize, and how would you work with that as president?
Well, my focus has been, my personal focus has been on domestic poverty. But I have done work on the international poverty issue. I've done humanitarian work in Africa. I've spent some time in places like the slums outside of Delhi in India. And I think that world poverty is a huge issue. You mentioned 1 billion people living on $1 or less a day. 3 billion people live on $2 or less a day. Right. And I think these conditions strengthen the forces of terrorism. And if we want to undermine the forces of terrorism, we need to address them and address them head on. So I have lots of ideas about things I think we should do. I think what America needs to do is help make education, primary school education, available to 100 million children in the world, largely in the third world, who don't have it. I think we ought to be leading on simple things like sanitation and clean drinking water. I've seen firsthand myself how that can stop the spread of disease. We ought to help with economic development, micro-lending, microfinance. I think those are the kind of initiatives that America should show, because if we're leading an international effort on those things, number one, we're addressing a huge world problem, which is global poverty. But second, it also makes America a force for good again in the world, which we desperately need.
Right, and taking the idea of international issues one step further as well, you're speaking about a lot of different international issues right now, but there are other candidates in this race, Joe Biden and Bill Richardson come to mind, who have more, I guess, substantial foreign policy experience, officially in government. Why do you think that you are the best candidate to lead and to shape America's foreign policy in this race?
Well, because I have worked very hard on the ground on what's happening in the world. For example, I led a task force on U.S.-Russia relations for the Council on Foreign Relations. I've spent time all around the world meeting with leaders, speaking at conferences in the Middle East, in Asia, in Europe, in other parts of the world. I've done firsthand work in places like Central Africa on the issues that affect and impact millions and millions of Africans. So first of all, I've got a lot of on-the-ground experience myself. And secondly, I think I have a vision of how America leads in the world that will work for decades and decades to come, not just for the next year or two, which means America stopping the bad, for lack of a better description, ending the war in Iraq, closing Guantanamo, making it clear we won't condone torture, closing secret prisons, stopping the illegal spying on the American people, the long laundry list of bad things that Bush has done. And then the flip side is America doing good things that help stabilize the world. And that means some of the things that we just talked about: education, health, economic development. And I think those are the ways, those two things in combination, plus the President of the United States, which I will do, speaking to the world about American values, which I think have been enormously distorted under this president. I mean, the world thinks we're a bully now and we're selfish and it's all we care about. And they need to hear from us that we are a country that believes in diversity, that we believe in equality, that the President of the United States believes in them, that we respect people from different cultures and different faith beliefs, that's at the heart of what America is. So I think those are the reasons that I'm prepared to be president.